It was a cold morning in New York. The city was alive with ambition, the same kind of ambition that had once burned inside Daniel Carter's heart. But today, as he stood in front of the glass wall of his office, overlooking the skyline, he didn't feel pride. He felt emptiness. The noise of success had become too loud, and in that noise, he had lost the only voices that mattered, his wife and his daughter. 15 years earlier, Daniel was a struggling architect living in a small apartment with his wife, Sarah, and their 5-year-old daughter, Lily. He was brilliant, passionate, and obsessed with the idea of making a name for himself. Every night, while Sarah put Lily to bed, Daniel sat over blueprints, sketching ideas that he believed would one day change the world. But dreams, no matter how beautiful, often come with a cost. Sarah used to sit beside him and say softly, "Daniel, you already have a world worth everything, your family." He would smile, distracted, and reply, "I'm doing this for us, Sarah, for Lily's future." But deep down, it wasn't just for them, it was for his ego. He wanted the world to know his name. One evening, he received a call from a major construction firm in New York. They wanted him on a project that could redefine modern architecture. The only condition was he had to move to New York immediately and give his full time to the company. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, but it meant leaving his family behind for at least a year. That night, Sarah cried silently, "Daniel, Lily needs you. We need you." But he couldn't hear her over the sound of his own dreams. He left the next morning. At the airport, Lily hugged his leg and looked up with innocent eyes. "Daddy, when will you come back?" Daniel smiled and kissed her forehead. "Very soon, princess. Daddy's going to build something big for you." Those words became a lie. Weeks turned into months, months into years. His career skyrocketed, awards, fame, recognition. He became one of the most celebrated architects in the country. But every night when he returned to his luxurious apartment, he found silence. No laughter, no family. Just the echo of his own footsteps. Sarah tried calling at first, then stopped. Letters were unanswered. Birthdays were missed. Lily grew up learning that her father was too busy for love. 15 years later, Daniel was standing in his office, looking at the blueprint of his latest skyscraper, a structure that symbolized success to the world but emptiness to him. His assistant knocked softly. "Sir, someone's here to see you." He turned around. A young woman stood at the door, holding a portfolio. Her eyes were familiar, soft yet filled with quiet pain. "Mr. Carter," she said, "I'm here to apply for the internship." Daniel nodded. "Of course. Come in." As she walked closer, his heart stopped. Her face, those eyes, that voice. It was Lily, his little girl, all grown up. He froze, unable to speak. "Lily?" he whispered. She looked confused for a moment, then straightened her posture. "It's Miss Carter now, sir." He tried to smile, but his lips trembled. "You've grown so much." She cut him off gently. "I didn't come here to talk about the past. I came for an opportunity. That's what you always cared about, isn't it?" Her tone wasn't angry, just heartbreakingly calm. The kind of calm that comes after too many tears. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to say he was sorry, to tell her that every building he designed was secretly named after her. But words failed him. He handed her the file instead. "You're hired," he said softly. She nodded without emotion. "Thank you, Mr. Carter." When she left, Daniel sat back in his chair, eyes full of tears. For the first time, he realized what true failure looked like. It wasn't losing a project. It was losing the people who once believed in you. That night, he opened an old box he had kept hidden for years. Inside were Lily's childhood drawings, a picture of a small house, a stick figure family, and a big heart in the middle labeled Daddy. He held the paper to his chest and broke down completely. For 15 years, Daniel Carter had built towers that touched the clouds. But he had forgotten to build the one thing that truly mattered: a home. And now, standing at the top of his success, he finally realized he was all alone. The next morning, Daniel arrived early at the office, his heart heavy with anticipation. He had spent the whole night thinking about Lily, how she looked so much like her mother, how her voice carried the same softness that once calmed his storms. He was proud of her for standing strong, for making it on her own. Yet every time he remembered the way she had called him Mr. Carter, it pierced through his chest like a knife. When Lily walked in, the air around him changed. She wore a simple white shirt, her hair tied back neatly, a professional calmness in her steps. Daniel tried to smile, but she only gave a polite nod. "Good morning, sir," she said in a firm, distant tone. He wanted to say, "Good morning, sweetheart," but he stopped himself. She wasn't his little girl anymore. She was a woman, one who had grown up without the father who should have been there. They worked side by side for hours, discussing designs and plans. Every time Daniel looked at her, he saw the reflection of everything he had lost: birthdays missed, tears unseen, hugs never returned. Lily spoke with confidence, her ideas sharp and creative, just like he had once been. During lunch, he tried to start a conversation. "Lily, would you like to grab lunch together? There's a quiet place across the street." She didn't even look up from her laptop. "I already have plans, Mr. Carter." He hesitated, his voice breaking slightly. "Right. Of course." After she left, Daniel sat alone, staring at the empty seat across the table. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside him, everything was painfully silent. Later that day, his assistant Claire came in and said softly, "Sir, is she your daughter?" Daniel looked up slowly. "She was. I'm not sure what I am to her now," Claire sighed. "She's talented, sir, and strong. Maybe she's here for a reason. Maybe she wants you to prove something." Daniel nodded. But deep down, he knew this was his second chance. Not as an architect, but as a father. The next few weeks were a test of patience and regret. Daniel watched as Lily worked late, just like he used to. She skipped meals, lost sleep, and pushed herself too hard. It reminded him painfully of the man he had once been, obsessed with success and blind to love. One evening, while reviewing blueprints together, Lily rubbed her temples and whispered, "Sometimes I wonder why people chase dreams that destroy them." Daniel looked at her, his heart breaking. Because some people realize too late that the dream wasn't worth what they lost. For a moment, her eyes met his. He saw tears there, not of weakness, but of years of hidden hurt. She looked away quickly. "You would know, wouldn't you?" He didn't respond. There was nothing left to defend. A few days later, the firm hosted a charity gala. Everyone was there: clients, journalists, architects. Daniel was surrounded by praise, but his eyes searched only for one person. Then he saw her, standing in a simple blue dress, elegant yet humble. She looked like a part of him that he had long forgotten. As the night went on, the host took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's special honor goes to our chief architect, Mr. Daniel Carter, for a lifetime of achievement in modern design." The crowd applauded, flashes from cameras filled the hall. Daniel walked up, accepted the award, and looked down at it. For years, this had been his dream, to stand here, recognized and applauded. But now, holding that trophy, all he felt was emptiness. He turned toward the microphone and spoke quietly. "Thank you, but I don't deserve this." The audience went silent. "I built towers that reached the sky, but I failed to build the one thing that mattered: a family. I abandoned the people who believed in me most. And tonight I don't see success, I see regret." The hall was utterly still. His voice trembled as he continued. "If my daughter is listening, I want her to know I'm sorry. I was blinded by ambition. I thought success would make me proud, but all it did was make me lonely." He set the award down and walked off the stage. Lily was standing near the exit, frozen. Her eyes were full of unshed tears. He stopped in front of her. "I didn't say it to the crowd," he whispered. "I said it to you." She swallowed hard. "It's too late, isn't it?" Daniel looked at her, his voice breaking. "Maybe it is. But I'll keep trying until it's not." She didn't reply, but when she turned to leave, he noticed something different. She wasn't angry anymore, just sad, and sadness, he knew, meant she still cared. The next day, Daniel found a small envelope on his desk. It was from Lily. Inside was a single note. "You can't rebuild the past, but maybe you can design something better, starting now." For the first time in years, Daniel smiled. He didn't know if forgiveness would ever come, but for the first time, there was hope, a faint light breaking through the ruins of his mistakes. He looked out of his office window, the city glowing beneath him, and whispered, "I'll earn it. Lily, this time I'll earn you." Daniel's world had shifted. For the first time in decades, he wasn't thinking about skyscrapers or awards. He was thinking about his daughter. That small note Lily left had become his lifeline. He carried it in his wallet, reading it every morning before work. He wanted to change, to rebuild what he had destroyed. But he knew that earning Lily's trust again wouldn't come from words. It would come from actions. At the firm, Daniel started doing something no one expected. He began arriving early, not for his own work, but to help the younger architects. He stopped shouting during meetings, started listening, and encouraged creativity over perfection. People noticed, and whispers began. The great Daniel Carter had changed, but Lily wasn't easily moved. She kept her distance, maintaining a professional boundary. Yet, Daniel could see moments, tiny cracks in her guarded expression, where her heart seemed to soften for just a second before she built her walls back up. One evening, Daniel found her alone in the design room, staring at a sketch of an old house. Small, with a white fence and a garden full of daisies. It looked strangely familiar. That's beautiful, he said softly. Is it from a memory? Lily didn't look up. It was our home. Before you left, he froze. His throat tightened. He remembered that house. The laughter, the birthday candles, the smell of pancakes on Sunday mornings. And then, the silence after he walked away. I didn't know you remembered it so clearly, he whispered. She finally looked at him. I remembered everything, Dad. Every day you didn't come home. Every promise you broke. Daniel's heart sank. He had no defense left. You have every right to hate me, he said quietly. But I hope someday you'll let me make it right. Lily folded her arms, her voice trembling. You think one apology and a few nice words erase years of pain? You left Mom to die alone while you chased buildings. He stepped back, guilt burning through him. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. She wiped her eyes. Then live with that regret. Because forgiveness doesn't come cheap. She walked out, leaving Daniel alone with the ghosts of his past. Days turned into weeks. Daniel didn't push her anymore. Instead, he started leaving small gestures. Coffee on her desk when she came in early. A jacket on her chair when she worked late. Little notes that said things like, proud of your design today, or you remind me of your mother's strength. Lily never replied, but she never threw them away either. One rainy evening, Daniel received a call from the city council. A major bridge project had collapsed under a rival firm's supervision, and the press was blaming the design industry. To restore public trust, the mayor invited top architects to propose a memorial garden of resilience, a symbol of hope for the city. Daniel saw it as an opportunity, not just professionally, but personally. He wanted Lily to co-lead the project. When he asked her, she hesitated. Why me? She asked coldly. Because you're the best person for it, he said. And because this project is about healing, I think we both need that. For the first time, Lily didn't reject his offer. All right, she said. But this isn't about you and me. It's about the people we're building it for. He smiled faintly. Then let's build it right. Over the next few months, they worked together. Long nights, heated arguments, shared ideas, and slow, quiet progress. Sometimes they laughed accidentally, forgetting the walls between them. Sometimes they fought so bitterly that Daniel feared he had lost her again. But through it all, something began to grow. Fragile, hesitant, but real. One night, while reviewing plans, Lily's pencil broke. Daniel handed her his. I used to do that for you, he said with a smile. You'd get so frustrated and throw your crayons across the room. She laughed softly, the first genuine laugh he'd heard from her in years. Yeah, and Mom would make you pick them up. They both smiled, a small warmth returning to their eyes. As the garden began to take shape, Daniel poured his heart into every detail, the archway carved with words of hope, the benches shaped like open hands, the fountain that reflected the night sky. But it was Lily's idea that completed it, a small bridge connecting two sides of the garden. She named it the Bridge of Forgiveness. The day of the grand opening arrived. Reporters, officials, and townspeople filled the space. Cameras flashed as Daniel and Lily stood together in front of the ribbon. When it was his turn to speak, Daniel didn't use a script. He looked at the crowd and then at his daughter. This garden, he began, was born from mistakes, mine. It's a reminder that no matter how far we fall, it's never too late to rebuild something beautiful. Even when the foundation is cracked, love can still grow. He turned to Lily. And sometimes, Forgiveness doesn't come in words. It comes in a second chance. Tears filled her eyes. The applause around them faded into a blur. Daniel cut the ribbon, but instead of walking forward, he handed the scissors to her. "This is your creation," he whispered. Lily took a deep breath. "No, Dad. This is ours." At that moment, Daniel realized he didn't need trophies or fame. His greatest masterpiece was standing right beside him, his daughter, strong and whole, choosing to forgive not with words, but with love. That night, after everyone had left, Lily and Daniel sat on the bench by the fountain. The water shimmered under the moonlight. "Mom would have loved this," she said softly. Daniel smiled. "She's watching, and I think she's proud of both of us." For the first time in years, they sat together in silence, not the silence of distance, but of peace. The kind that comes when broken hearts finally start to heal. The morning after the garden's grand opening, Daniel woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing nonstop. Dozens of messages, emails, and missed calls. Something was wrong. His name was trending, not for his redemption speech, but for something darker. A headline glared at him from the news site. Carter design firm accused of fraud in past projects. Daniel froze. His hands trembled as he scrolled through the article. It accused his company, the one he had built from nothing, of cutting corners in safety materials during a housing project nearly 10 years ago. The report claimed that dozens of families had unknowingly lived in unsafe structures. The buildings hadn't collapsed, but inspections revealed flaws that could have led to disaster. His heart sank deeper when he saw another name listed under the investigation. Daniel Carter, lead architect and CEO. He ran his hands through his hair, disbelief flooding him. He hadn't known. Or maybe he hadn't wanted to know. He had been too blinded by ambition back then, trusting others to handle the details while he focused on success. But the guilt was still his to carry. A knock came at his office door later that morning. Lily stepped in, holding her phone. Her eyes were cold, the way they had been before he found her again. "Is it true?" she asked quietly. Daniel couldn't find the words. "Lily, I didn't—" She cut him off. "You signed off on those projects. You built those homes. I trusted my partners," he said. "I didn't know they were using cheaper materials." Her voice cracked with disbelief. "You always say that, Dad. You didn't know. You didn't see. You didn't care. It's the same excuse you used when Mom was sick." The words hit like a blade. He stepped closer, but she backed away. "Lily, please. I'm not that man anymore." "Then prove it," she said coldly, turning toward the door. "Because right now, it looks like you're still paying for the dreams that destroyed us." She left, and the silence that followed felt heavier than ever. That evening, Daniel drove to one of the old housing sites mentioned in the report. The building stood quiet under the streetlights. He parked and stepped out, running his hand along a cracked wall. Children's laughter echoed faintly from a nearby playground, and his heart ached. He knelt down, closing his eyes. "God, what have I done?" he whispered. He didn't see the small group of journalists approaching until flashes of cameras surrounded him. "Mr. Carter, do you admit to falsifying project reports? Were you aware of safety violations? Do you think your redemption story was just a cover-up?" He shielded his face from the lights. "No comments," he said, trying to walk away. But the headlines the next day were merciless. Daniel Carter's redemption crumbles. The garden architect who built on lies. His company board called an emergency meeting. His reputation, the one he had just begun to rebuild, was collapsing faster than any structure he had ever designed. That night, alone in his apartment, Daniel stared at the framed photo of his family. His late wife's smile, Lily as a little girl sitting on his shoulders. He whispered to the picture. "I thought I could fix things, but maybe I was never meant to." He almost didn't hear the knock at the door. When he opened it, Lily was standing there. Her eyes were red, her face pale. "Why are you here?" he asked quietly. She took a deep breath. "Because I saw the reports. I read the details. And I realized something. The signature on those documents wasn't yours. It was someone forging your approval." Daniel blinked. "What?" she nodded. "I went through the archives. The timelines didn't match. You were in Dubai during that phase of the project. It was one of your partners who faked it to save money." Relief and heartbreak mixed in his chest. "So you believe me?" She hesitated. "I want to. But believing doesn't fix the damage, Daniel nodded slowly. Then I'll fix it myself. He decided to face the media again, this time not with denial, but with truth. He stood in front of reporters at a press conference, his voice steady. 10 years ago, my company made a mistake. Whether I knew it or not, I was responsible for every signature under my name. I can't undo the past, but I can make it right. Starting today, I will personally fund repairs for every home we built under that project. I will not hide behind excuses anymore. Lily watched from the crowd, tears welling as she heard her father's voice crack with sincerity. The next few months were grueling. Daniel sold his penthouse, his car, and half of his assets to cover the repair costs. The media called it a desperate attempt at redemption, but he didn't care. For the first time, his success wasn't measured in money or recognition. It was measured in integrity. Lily began helping him with logistics, managing communication with the affected families. Slowly, she saw the sincerity in his effort. He worked through the nights, often sleeping at the construction site. One evening, while Daniel was supervising workers, a small boy ran up to him. "Sir, my mom says thank you for fixing our roof." Daniel smiled, bending down. "Tell your mom she doesn't owe me anything. Just promise me you'll grow up and build something better." Lily watched from a distance, her chest tightening. The man she hated for years was now the man she had always wished he'd been. Later that night, she brought him a cup of coffee. "You look exhausted," she said softly. He chuckled weakly. "Old men like me weren't built for night shifts." She sat beside him. "You're doing the right thing, Dad." He looked at her with tired but grateful eyes. "It's the least I can do." There was a pause. The sound of hammering echoed in the distance. Then Lily whispered, "Mom would have been proud of you." Daniel's eyes glistened. "You think so?" "I know so," she said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "She always believed in second chances. I guess she passed that on to me." For the first time, Daniel didn't reply with words. He just placed his hand over hers, feeling the warmth of forgiveness, fragile, but real. Months later, the media began to change their tone. Headlines shifted. Carter funds restoration for hundreds of families. Architect turns mistakes into miracles. Daniel didn't care for the praise anymore. What mattered was the look in Lily's eyes. The walls were finally gone. One evening, as they stood together overlooking the completed repairs, Lily smiled faintly. "You know, I used to wish you'd lose everything, just so you'd understand what it feels like." Daniel smiled sadly. "And now that I have?" She turned toward him. "Now I just wish you peace." He nodded, a quiet tear slipping down his cheek. "I think I've finally found it." The city lights shimmered ahead of them, reflecting off the new buildings, structures built not from ambition, but from redemption. And standing beside him, his daughter, his second chance, was proof that even from the ruins of guilt, love can rise again. The sound of rain against the window filled the quiet apartment. Daniel sat at his desk, staring at the reports in front of him. His company's restoration work was nearly complete. Hundreds of homes repaired, lives made safer, reputations rebuilt. But lately, even simple tasks left him breathless. He pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the familiar tightness. The doctor had warned him months ago that the stress and long hours were taking a toll on his heart. But Daniel had waved it off. There was still work to do, still promises to keep. When Lily entered the room, she noticed the pale color on his face. "Dad, are you all right?" He smiled weakly. "Just tired. The body isn't as strong as the spirit anymore," she frowned. "You've been saying that a lot lately. You need to rest." "I will." "After the last site inspection," Lily sighed. "You always say that too." Daniel smiled, the same tired but gentle smile that made her heart ache. "Old habits die hard, sweetheart." He stood up to leave, but his hand trembled slightly as he reached for his coat. Lily caught it, literally and emotionally. For a moment their eyes met, and she saw fear behind his calmness. Fear of stopping. Fear of losing purpose. 2 weeks later, during an inspection visit to the final restoration site, Daniel collapsed. The workers rushed to his side as he lost consciousness, his breath shallow, his face drained of color. By the time Lily reached the hospital, he was already in surgery. Hours passed like centuries. The waiting room's clock ticked louder with every minute. She clenched the edge of her chair, whispering prayers she hadn't said since childhood. When the doctor finally appeared, she stood up so fast her knees nearly gave out. "He's stable for now," the doctor said, "but his heart is very weak. He needs rest, no stress, no work. If he continues like this, the damage could be irreversible." Lily nodded, tears threatening to spill. "Can I see him?" When she entered the room, Daniel was asleep, pale against the white sheets. His hand lay motionless on the blanket, the same hand that once built skyscrapers, now trembling under the weight of age and guilt. She took it gently, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You've done enough, Dad," she whispered. "You don't have to prove anything anymore." When he woke later, his first words were faint but steady. "Did the team finish the roof repairs?" Lily almost laughed through her tears. "You're in a hospital bed and you're thinking about roofs?" He smiled softly. "Those families deserve safety. I promised them. You also promised me you'd take care of yourself." He looked at her, regret and love filling his tired eyes. "I'm sorry, I wanted to leave something behind that mattered." Lily squeezed his hand. "You already did. You left me." He stared at her, his eyes glistening. "Then I suppose I built the most important thing right after all." Over the next few weeks, Lily moved him to her apartment to recover. She took a leave from her design firm and set up his medications and a strict routine. But Daniel hated sitting still. Every morning he tried to sneak a look at his emails or make a call to the site managers. "Dad," she scolded gently one morning, taking the phone from his hand, "you're supposed to rest." "I can't just sit here while others do my work." She crossed her arms. "That's exactly what you need to do. Let others handle it now. You've earned peace," he sighed, looking out the window. "Peace feels strange when you've lived your life chasing storms." One evening, as the sun set, Daniel asked her to take him for a walk. They moved slowly through the nearby park, the cool air wrapping around them. The trees whispered softly in the breeze. "You know," he said after a while, "when I was your age, I thought success meant never stopping. But now I see that real success is knowing when to rest." She smiled gently. "You finally figured that out," he chuckled weakly. "Too late, maybe." They stopped by a bench near a fountain. Daniel sat down, breathing deeply. "Lily, there's something I never told you." She turned to him. "What is it?" "When your mother got sick, I wasn't just chasing money. I was running from fear. I couldn't stand to watch her fade away, so I buried myself in work. I thought if I made enough, I could fix everything. Her illness, our pain, our future. But some things can't be built with bricks and steel." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know, Dad. I should have been there. I should have held you more, cried with you more." His voice broke. "I thought strength meant silence. But I was wrong." Lily reached over and took his hand. "We both lost her, Dad, and we both blamed ourselves in different ways. But I think she'd be proud of what you've done. You turned your guilt into something beautiful." Daniel closed his eyes, tears slipping down. "She would have loved to see you now. So strong, so kind." Lily smiled faintly. "Maybe she's watching." He nodded slowly. "Maybe she is." That night, back at the apartment, Daniel wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "It's the final ownership papers for the Carter Foundation. I'm putting your name as director. You'll lead it from now on." She looked at him in shock. "Dad, no. This is your legacy." He shook his head. "Our legacy. You have my vision, but you also have what I never did, and balance. You can make sure the next generation builds with conscience." Tears filled her eyes. "You're not leaving me, are you?" He smiled softly. "No, sweetheart. I'm just passing the torch." Weeks passed. Under Lily's direction, the Carter Foundation grew stronger, focusing on sustainable, community-driven projects. They rebuilt schools, playgrounds, and shelters. The name Carter became not a symbol of greed, but of hope. Daniel watched it all from a quiet distance, proud and at peace. His health remained fragile, but his heart was lighter than it had ever been. One quiet morning, Lily came into his room with a newspaper in her hand. "They published a feature about you," she said with a smile. "They're calling you the man who rebuilt his soul." Daniel smiled faintly. "That's a better title than I deserve." He leaned back in his chair, looking out the window. The sun filtered through the curtains, warm and golden. "You know, Lily, when I left you years ago, I thought I was chasing success. But now I realize I was always running toward this moment." She sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. Toward what? He smiled, his eyes distant but calm. Toward peace. A long silence filled the room. The morning light bathed them both in soft gold. Daniel's eyes fluttered closed, his breathing steady and slow. Lily held his hand, whispering, "Rest now. Dad, you've done enough." The room was still. Peaceful. A fitting ending for a man who had finally found what he'd spent his life searching for. Days later, the Carter Foundation held a small ceremony in his honor. Architects, workers, and families he had helped all gathered, not to mourn, but to celebrate a man who had rebuilt more than buildings. He had rebuilt hearts. Lily stood before them, her voice steady. "My father once believed success meant never stopping. But he taught me something greater, that the strongest structures are built not from stone, but from forgiveness, love, and the courage to start again." The crowd applauded softly, and in that moment, she knew his dream had come full circle, because somewhere in the quiet beyond, Daniel Carter was smiling, not as the man who lost everything, but as the man who finally found what truly mattered.